Dream Stone itself.
Maxwell Lord is the kind of guy who walks into a room, smiles, and you already know you're being played like a fiddle. Certainly not one to throw fists first, Maxwell is more the type who will buy your company, fire your boss, and convince you it was your idea all along. He started out as a smooth-talking businessman funding the Justice League, which sounds like some sketchy Elon Musk with a hero fetish, but Maxwell did it so he could be the one calling the shots. Classic control freak energy, wrapped up in a suit and a tie. Max has been a major part of the Justice League's history, both as their sketchy sponsor in the 80s and a guy who literally turned on them when it suited him. But he wasn't always psychic. That came later, thanks to a push from a sentient satellite. Long story, we'll get there. And suddenly, the guy could mess with your mind as well. Let's just say it didn't take long before he was using this power on people like Superman. Things escalated quickly. This isn't your usual cape and cowl origin story, folks. It's way messier and way more fun. So whether you know Maxwell Lord from the comics, the cartoons, or that whole neck-snapping situation in Wonder Woman 1984, we welcome you, because we're going deep into the mind and madness behind those clean-cut suits and smug smiles. Spoiler alert, you might end up liking him more than you expected, or hating him more than you expected. Both are extremely valid. Anyways, before we get too deep into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Maxwell Lord in DC Comics? Maxwell Lord was never the average DC suit. Think of him as a corporate Lex Luthor light at first, minus the megalomania, with boardroom strategies instead of laser beams and doombots. He had the charm of a billionaire tech bro and the moral compass of a guy who really knows how to walk the line between helping the world and helping himself. Maxwell first showed up in 1987's Justice League Issue 1, and he was created by Keith Giffen, J.M. DeMatteis, and Kevin Maguire. At the start, we see him as a wealthy businessman with a talent for manipulation and a serious ambition to better the world. He didn't have powers yet because, honestly, he didn't need them. He had the next best thing: money and influence. Now, Maxwell didn't start off evil. In the original story, he is born with a silver spoon shoved halfway down his throat, and he has money, a legacy, and a last name that opens every door for him. His dad, a genuinely good dude, ran a pharmaceutical empire. A sharp businessman, sure, but not cutthroat. He made enough to give his family a comfortable life, but he never hoarded wealth or power. Maxwell's dad tried to do right by others and made sure young Max grew up with solid morals in his life, or at least he tried to. That compass snapped in half when Max turned 16. His dad's company was pumping out stuff that was straight up toxic. Carcinogenic products disguised as miracle meds. When Max's father figured out what they had been putting out into the world, he couldn't live with it and ended his life. That moment broke Max. The teenage boy stared at a lifeless man he thought was invincible. Nothing made sense to him anymore, but he set the house in order and decided to keep the money, cut the guilt, and do better. Or at least his version of better. What was Maxwell Lord's original role with the Justice League? Back when the Justice League was going through a bit of a shakeup in the late 80s, DC decided to switch things up with Justice League International, and this is where Maxwell Lord makes his appearance. Technically, he was on the good guy's side, sort of. At first glance, Max looked like your typical corporate sponsor. He wormed his way into superhero circles by bankrolling the Justice League International, helping them go global, and trying to turn a bunch of unpredictable heroes into a PR-friendly world-policing brand. Basically, the grown-up in the room with a checkbook. He kept the lights on, the jets fueled, and the press conferences well-managed, but unofficially, he was the guy you knew had a plan B and probably a plan C, and maybe a plan Z that no one else got to see. And for a while, it worked. Heroes trusted him, at least sort of, and Maxwell got to hang around gods and aliens. Now, Max wasn't exactly the archetypal villain right away. He played the nice guy in a suit role decently well. Sure, he was shady, but back then you could still argue that maybe, just maybe, he was one of the good guys. He believed he was doing the right thing, gunning for global peace, keeping heroes accountable, and making sure the Justice League didn't run on good vibes alone. He was that one guy in the team photo who smiled with his teeth and his wallet. But of course, this is DC Comics. Nobody stays clean forever. The same instincts that made him a clever power player would soon take a darker turn, and when Max crossed the line from influential middleman to full-on controller, it wasn't pretty. But in those early days, he was the man. The kind of guy who could sell the world on superheroes and then bill them for the publicity. Still, in those early issues, you couldn't call Max the villain. Sure, he was always nudging things his way. Sometimes it was harmless PR, other times manipulation to serve his purposes. But he did help form the new Justice League and brought together the likes of Batman, Martian Manhunter, Booster Gold, and Blue Beetle, and set up their base of operations under the umbrella of the United Nations. For a while, it looked like he was playing straight. Maybe a little shady, but nothing outright evil. But even during his supportive JLI days, Max always had an itch for control. Be it planting information, manipulating public opinion, or nudging heroes to follow his plan instead of their own, he made sure he rolled the dice. He turned the Justice League into a brand, worked his way into global politics, and made sure that when shit hit the fan, he was the one holding the remote. That's what you call talent, or trouble. Depends which side of the fence you're standing on. How did Maxwell Lord gain his mind control powers? Now, things got way messier after he came into contact with an alien AI that tried to turn him into its puppet. It all began when Max was poking around with high-level tech and shady organizations. At one point, he had a close encounter with a sketchy alien supercomputer buried near Earth's core called Kilgore. While most people dig up fossils, Max found a manipulative extraterrestrial AI that decided he would fit the bill to run its secret global peace mission. But it wasn't all about peace. For a while, it looked like Max was under Kilgore's control, the AI wiring itself into his brain and feeding him visions, goals, and a weird sense of purpose. He didn't turn into Professor X overnight, but it gave Max basic telepathy, and he could kind of suggest stuff, plant ideas, nudge decisions. However, Max turned the tables. He fought off the influence of Kilgore, but the experience left a mark. When the smoke cleared, something inside Max had changed, and his brain wasn't normal anymore. But then came Invasion, the DC crossover event where a bunch of alien races teamed up to wipe out Earth's metahumans because apparently they were all too spicy to be kept around. The alien overlords, the Dominators, decided to drop a gene bomb. Yeah, DC loves their random disasters, and the aliens hoped it would fry everyone with the meta gene. However, this thing was a metahuman upgrade/death trap in one go. If you had the gene, it either juiced you up or fried you completely. Now, most humans would have turned into dust or been completely unaffected, but for Max, that small nagging voice of telepathy in the back of his head turned into a full-fledged superpower. Whatever spark Kilgore left behind mixed with the gene bomb's blast and unlocked his full psychic potential. And from that point on, Max was no longer the guy whispering suggestions at team meetings. He could now force people to do what he wanted, no matter how much they resisted. He could take over someone's actions, override their thoughts, and people stopped thinking about what Max said and started doing it. But it wasn't unlimited. Every time Max used it too hard, his body paid the price. He'd get blinding headaches, nosebleeds, even seizures. Still, Max wasn't the kind of guy to let a little brain damage slow him down. He knew exactly how dangerous his new power was, and that made him even more obsessed with control. What was Maxwell Lord's major turning point in the DC lore? Maxwell Lord's fall from morally gray suit guy to a supervillain didn't happen with quiet scheming behind closed doors. He crossed the line in Countdown to Infinite Crisis in 2005, and once he stepped over that line, there was no going back. Up until then, he'd been shady, manipulative, but still working around the heroes. But after the Infinite Crisis, he made sure everybody in the DC universe knew he was done pretending. No gray areas left. Let's start with the Blue Beetle incident because, oof, that was cold. Ted Kord, aka Blue Beetle, the guy who had been Max's buddy and teammate during the Justice League International days, got suspicious. He started poking around and noticed some weird patterns in Checkmate's operation. Checkmate is basically DC's version of the CIA meeting the Illuminati. To his surprise, he found that Max had secretly taken control of Checkmate and quietly turned the entire intelligence agency into his personal surveillance network. He was watching heroes, storing data, and loading it with spies and weapons. He was no longer content running PR for heroes anymore. He wanted more. He wanted to monitor every metahuman on the planet with satellites, files, and contingency plans. Ted marched straight to Max, hoping to talk him down. What he gets instead is a bullet to the face. This isn't the same Max anymore, and it didn't stop there. Max had already moved on to bigger fish. Anyways, things go from bad to worse when Alexander Luthor Jr., the alternate universe son of Lex Luthor from a parallel Earth, hands Max something he should have never been allowed near: Brother Eye, a hyper-intelligent satellite system originally built by Batman to secretly keep tabs on every superhuman across the globe. Now, Max had eyes everywhere. From there, he activated the OMAX, a bunch of regular humans infected with nanotech that turned them into emotionless superhuman hunters. He unleashed thousands of them, with one mission: find and wipe out every metahuman on the planet. Hero, villain, doesn't matter. If you had powers, Max wanted you gone. But Max overplayed his hand. He goes after Superman and takes over his mind. Using his powers, he hijacked the Man of Steel's brain and turned him into a weapon. Superman, confused and out of control, attacks Batman like he was the enemy. And let's be real, if Superman thinks you need to go down, you're probably going through a few walls. It takes the courage and pragmatism of Wonder Woman to step in and put an end to it. Max tells her the only way to stop him is to kill him. So she does. She snapped his neck on live TV. How exactly do Maxwell Lord's powers work? All Maxwell Lord needs to ruin your day is you, your brain, and about 3 seconds of eye contact. That's it. Then you're his puppet. At the most basic level, Max can make suggestions, real gentle ones, like a whisper in your thoughts. He couldn't make you rob a bank, but he could make you want to. He could plant a suggestion so naturally that you would think it was your idea. That's his shtick. His powers work best in short bursts. Quick influence, quick effect. A whisper of suggestion, he can pull that off easily, especially if the target's distracted, emotionally rattled, or just not the sharpest tool in the shed. The weaker the mind, the faster Max gets in. The closer he is, the easier it is to focus. Long-range control is possible, but it's unstable and exhausting. If the target breaks his line of sight or moves too far away, Max starts to lose grip. But that's just the surface level stuff. Max can go way deeper if he wants. Given enough focus, he can take full control of your mind, body, decisions, and everything. He could make you fight your best friend, make you say things, or just hand him over world-ending tech without a second thought. But it came with a hefty price. Strong-willed people, the more focused or disciplined the target, the harder he had to push, and the harder he pushes, the more his own brain turns against him. Every time Max used his powers, it took a chunk out of him. Controlling a regular person gave him a migraine, but controlling Superman nearly killed him. Max knew every command he gave might be the one that ruptured a blood vessel in his head, and yet he kept doing it. He had to ration his powers carefully. He didn't pull out the big moves unless he was cornered, and even then, he knew one wrong push could drop him cold. So, when he used his powers, it meant he was playing for keeps. But superpowers are only half the story. He was also a global businessman. He made deals in secret, funded conflicts under the table, and bought influence. And then there's his brain. Master Manipulator doesn't even begin to cover it. Max is easily in the top 3 criminal masterminds in the DC universe. A long-game strategist who weaponized fear, trust, and influence better than most villains could with entire armies. In the end, Maxwell Lord is the kind of guy you never want in the room. Heroes think twice before facing him, and villains don't turn their backs. That says it all. Has Maxwell Lord ever lost his powers? Oh yeah, Max Lord has absolutely lost his powers, multiple times in fact. His telepathic gig hasn't exactly been stable over the years. Sometimes it's been turned off, other times he's an out-and-out psychic menace, and in classic comic book fashion, randomly restored depending on who's writing him and what reality DC happens to be playing with that month. Doesn't matter though, powers or no powers, Max stays dangerous and always finds a way to crawl back into relevance. Take Blackest Night for example. After Wonder Woman killed him in Countdown to Infinite Crisis, Max didn't stay dead for long. He came back during Blackest Night as a Black Lantern, a zombified version of himself. Lord targeted Wonder Woman right from the get-go. Then, in the follow-up Brightest Day, he gets properly resurrected by the White Light entity, and here's where it gets weird. He returned with his mind control powers still active, but things were off. He wasn't as strong as before, and there were moments where it looked like his power was flickering. Not gone, but not at full blast either. Fresh out of the grave, Max crossed paths with Guy Gardner, one of his old Justice League teammates and one of the few people who never bought his nice guy act. They had a brief, heated clash, but Max wasn't looking to stick around. He had his own goals and a long memory full of unfinished business, so he disappeared. Then came the New 52 and Rebirth reboots, and Max's powers got shuffled again. In the 2016 Justice League vs. Suicide Squad, he was shown using his abilities and unleashing Eclipso, an evil entity. This led to a clash between the Suicide Squad and the Justice League. Typical Max stuff, but after that arc, his powers waned, or at least toned down. But it never stopped him from being a threat. Even at his weakest, Max was still 10 steps ahead. He knew how to lie, twist, and corner people into doing exactly what he wanted, all without saying a word telepathically. Because if Max is in the room, someone is definitely getting played. What does Maxwell Lord look like across comics and media? Maxwell Lord has always looked like he walked out of a corporate boardroom and straight into a secret government war room. Always clean-cut, always in a crisp suit that probably costs more than your rent. In the comics, he's the guy in the perfect suit, clean-shaven, sharp jawline, and he always has that "I know something you don't" expression sitting right behind his eyes. His hair is usually slicked back or neatly parted. He doesn't look like a villain, which makes him way more dangerous, but there is always this air of quiet menace about him. He's charming, sure, but in a way where you can't quite tell if he's complimenting you or setting you up for a fall. He'll smile during a team debrief, then leak your secrets to Checkmate 20 minutes later. You just never know with Max. Over the years, artists have given him slight tweaks depending on the tone. In the early Justice League International days, he had more of a smooth-talking salesman vibe. Then, as his character took a darker turn, especially during Infinite Crisis, his look followed. His face got harder, the eyes got colder, the charm was still there, but now with trouble underneath. Outside the comics, Max showed up in a few live-action adaptations. In Smallville, he made a one-off appearance in a more traditional businessman role, but it was Pedro Pascal in Wonder Woman 1984 that gave us the most high-profile version of the character on screen thus far. Pascal's Lord was a desperate, emotionally unstable media tycoon wrapped in gold ties, TV ads, and hollow promises. He was showy, talkative, and far more chaotic than his comic counterpart. The suits were still there, the hair was bigger, well, it was the 80s after all, but he wasn't so much the cold strategist as he was the guy who really wanted to matter. This Max was driven purely by insecurity. He was still dangerous, still unhinged, and still power-hungry. Across all versions, though, one thing stays the same: Maxwell Lord always looks in control. What kind of technology or tools does Lord use when he's not relying on powers? When Maxwell Lord isn't tinkering around in someone's brain, don't think for a second that he's powerless. This guy knows how to keep himself busy and doesn't need his powers to be a threat. Mind control was just the bonus feature. Max has always been big on keeping tabs. He doesn't like surprises, and the man doesn't trust anyone. Heroes, villains, civilians, it doesn't matter. When the telepathy was gone, he used facial recognition software, hacked citywide systems, and bugged government networks. You see, he doesn't need to read minds when he's already got your phone tapped. We already know how he used Batman's own satellite system, Brother Eye, to spy on every meta on Earth. Then there's Checkmate, which means more satellites, more Black Ops agents, and enough redacted intel to make Nick Fury choke. Max became the Black King, one of the highest-ranking leaders in the organization. But Max doesn't stop at tech. Oh no, he also plays dirty. Political blackmail is one of his go-to tools. If someone powerful has a skeleton in the closet, Max probably has the X-rays, time-stamped receipts, and 3 backup copies on a private drive. He uses it to buy loyalty or force cooperation. People think twice about crossing him because they know he has enough dirt to bury them without saying a word. When the powers go quiet, Lord actually becomes scarier. Because powers can be blocked or neutralized, but a guy who knows your secrets, controls your funding, and can reroute a drone strike without blinking, that's a man you really don't want for an enemy. He doesn't need to lift a finger to do damage, he just needs access. And Max Lord, being Max Lord, always has access. What is Maxwell Lord's ultimate goal? Max Lord isn't in it for money or fame or to watch the world burn. What Max wants is control on a global, multiversal scale. Not because he wants to rule the world, but because he doesn't trust anyone else to keep it from falling apart. The way Max sees it, the biggest threat to the world is from the very people we call heroes. Metahumans, superheroes, aliens in capes, magic-wielding gods, all of them. See, in Max's warped little brain, the so-called saviors of the world are the ultimate existential threat. All it takes is one Kryptonian bad day, one magical outburst, or one bad move, and any one of them could level a city. If the most powerful beings on Earth are free to do whatever they want, it's the thought that terrifies him. Unlike Lex Luthor, who's driven by jealousy and ego, Max genuinely believes he's the adult in the room, and that's the kind of villain you really need to worry about. The one who thinks they're doing it for your sake, because his version of protection comes costly. If you have powers, Max wants you monitored, and if you don't play by his rules, he wants you neutralized, if it comes to that. And if you're too dangerous to let walk free, he will make sure you don't walk at all. And yes, it's as dramatic as it sounds. That's why he took over Checkmate, why he hacked into Batman's Brother Eye satellite, why he built contingency plans and unleashed Omax to hunt down metahumans. He sees himself as humanity's buffer zone, the line between gods and ants, the one person willing to wrestle power away from the unpredictable demigods. To Max, the Justice League isn't a symbol of hope, but a disaster waiting to happen, and if controlling their minds or turning public opinion against them is the only way to prevent another alien invasion or magical meltdown, so be it. He wants to keep the world spinning, even if it means becoming the villain in everyone else's story, because he truly believes he's doing the right thing. So yes, Max sleeps just fine after. If he has to burn a few bridges, or bury a few bodies, or puppet a Kryptonian or two along the way, that's no biggie. At least, that's what he tells himself. Maxwell Lord in other media, TV, film, and games. Maxwell Lord might have started out as a comic book businessman with a god complex, but the guy's made his way into all corners of DC's multimedia empire. Whether it's TV, film, or games, Max shows up with that same grin, dangerous mind, and a habit of turning things sideways the second he walks on screen. Max's animated debut came in Justice League Unlimited, episode Ultimatum, voiced by Tim Matheson. In this version, he didn't have powers, just influence and access. He served as the public face and handler for a group called the Ultimen, a group of lab-grown, short-lived superheroes meant to be the League's backup or maybe replacements. What the Ultimen didn't know is that they were clones with short lifespans and fake memories made by Cadmus. Max oversees them like products on a shelf. They were given fake memories and fake parents played by actors, and once their bodies started breaking down, they would quietly be replaced with a fresh batch. That worked fine until one generation figured it all out and broke loose. When the truth surfaces, the Ultimen rebel, and Max is nearly torn apart before the League steps in. After a scuffle, most of them were taken down by the League, and Max, alongside Amanda Waller, stepped in to collect the survivors. Cold and calculated, business as usual for Max. In Smallville, Max appeared during Season 9, played by Gil Bellows. This time, he was the Black King of Checkmate, running one of DC's shadiest spy organizations. He has psychic powers here too, and can extract memories. His arc ties into a wider government conspiracy and the hunt for the Book of Rao, a Kryptonian artifact with plans of alien exodus. This version of Max comes across as the kind of guy who would sell out the entire planet if it meant controlling the next one. No mind control specifically this time, but Max was still way too comfortable digging around in people's minds, and he never played fair. Peter Facinelli's version of Max in Supergirl Season 1 is a rich tech genius running his own company, Lord Technologies. He has trust issues with the government because his parents died due to their negligence, and he doesn't trust aliens either. Here, Max was obsessed with Supergirl, not in a fanboy way, but in a creates a bizarro Supergirl clone using her DNA kind of way. Supergirl shut that down, but not before Max pushes things way too far. Later, he creates synthetic kryptonite to stop Non's invasion and works both sides of the hero-villain line. Max swings between an uneasy ally and a full-on problem, but spent most of Season 1 as a pain in Supergirl's cape, sometimes helping her, more often working against her. In Wonder Woman 1984, Maxwell Lord finally hit the big screen, and Pedro Pascal's Max might be the most emotionally layered version of him we've ever gotten. Here, he's Maxwell Lorenzano, who comes across as a more tragic con man with a dream. After a rough childhood full of abuse and poverty, Max builds a public image as a TV pitchman and oil tycoon. He finds the Dreamstone, a wish-granting relic that lets him trade other people's desires for power and influence, but every wish comes with a cost, and Max goes crazy with it. At first, he's living the dream. Every wish granted means more power, success, and wealth for Max. But the more wishes he grants, the more unstable he becomes. Soon, everything starts collapsing around him under the weight of all the chaos he unleashes. Wars, nukes, economic collapse. Diana eventually confronts him, and he gives it all up for his son. Max was also set to appear in George Miller's infamous canceled film Justice League Mortal, played by Jay Baruchel. Named Jonah Wilkes, this iteration would have been a government test subject who got psychic powers through the OMAC project. Word is, he was meant to be completely unhinged, using mind control to turn Superman and the League against each other. The film never got made, but the concept art and leaked script gave Max one of his darkest potential versions. But he's not done yet. Maxwell Lord is set to return in James Gunn's rebooted DC Universe, starting with the upcoming Superman film. This time around, he'll be played by Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, who has already played Calendar Man and Weasel in The Suicide Squad and Kraglin in Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, he's stepping into the shoes of one of DC's biggest manipulators. We don't know exactly how Max will be used in the new universe yet, but given Sean Gunn's range and James Gunn's tendency to mix weird with brilliant, we can certainly expect something different. Max is also confirmed to return in Season 2 of Peacemaker, meaning his role in this new universe probably won't be small or one-off. Whether he's manipulating things from the top or getting his hands dirty remains to be seen, but Max is definitely back in the mix. And then there's his entries into the world of collectibles. In 2011, Max was featured in a HeroClix set tied to Superman/Flashpoint. His figure is classic Max. Suit, serious face, fingers pressed to his temple mid-mind control. The character card that comes with him pulls straight from the comics, especially his role in the OMAC project and Countdown to Infinite Crisis. Max also shows up as an antagonist in the game Wonder Woman, the Themyscira Experience, where he butts heads with Diana once more. He also makes a short but clever appearance in the video game Scribblenauts Unmasked, a DC Comics adventure where you can summon him as a character. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but proof that Max is considered iconic enough to make it into even the weirdest corners of DC's gaming world. Maxwell Lord has been rich, dead, cloned, dead, resurrected, televised, dead, and rebooted more times than most villains get to dream about. Across every version, animated, live-action, video game, the core remains the same. He's a man obsessed with control, and no matter how many times he falls, Max always gets back up and keeps showing up when the stakes get personal and usually messy. Marvelous verdict! So who is Maxwell Lord? He's the villain you don't see coming. The one who doesn't need a mask or claws or laser eyes to wreck your life. All he needs is access to your brain, your secrets, or even your wishes. And once he's in, good luck getting him out. In his head, he's fixing the world while everyone else is too scared or soft to do what needs to be done. And whether you hate him or weirdly respect the hustle, one thing's for sure, Maxwell Lord is not someone you leave unsupervised. So that's a wrap on Maxwell Lord. Now, if you ever meet someone too eager to fund your superhero squad, maybe double check their credentials, or at least keep Batman on speed dial. Just maybe. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.